Well, hello there. Hello there. My name is Lucas, and it is my sincere honor to be introducing someone who's an educator. He's a Jedi, and he's a father to me. He's also a librarian. So, as I introduce him to someone who means so much to me and has just provided so much comfort and just a role model in my life, he's going to come up here and introduce us to something called the hero's journey. So, when we think of heroes, we might think of somebody from a movie, something from a book. Maybe somebody sitting next to you right now. But I truly want to ask you to look at yourself. Today is Passion and Purpose. We want you to look at yourself as the hero, and we want to invite you into our story, into our hero's journey, to try to see you as the hero. So it's going to be us sharing our passion with you, and it's going to be our goal that you find your purpose here today. Okay? So it is my awesome honor to introduce my Jedi father, Paul Warner.
A long time ago, in a movie theater, kind of like this one, a little 8-year-old boy was watching Star Wars for the very first time in 1977. And from the moment that galaxy far, far away filled the screen, it filled his soul. His life would never be the same. Yeah, you guessed it. That little boy was me. I don't know what gave it away. But from that moment forward, I immersed myself not only in all things Star Wars, but in all things sci-fi fantasy. It became my passion. I had to see every show and movie, had to own every action figure and build every plastic model kit, and, well, definitely had to transform every empty wrapping paper tube into a homemade lightsaber. That's essential. But my entire existence began to wrap around these stories that I could both escape to and just make such a part of who I am. And tonight, I want to tell you about something called the hero's journey, because when I started reading sci-fi fantasy books and comics, I was drawn especially to those hero's journeys. And when I started to write my own stories and comics, I imagined myself being the hero out there having adventures and helping others, something that I didn't think I could ever do in my real life, because I was just some nobody kid from a small farm in this area whose dad worked at the local paper mill and who was told he'd probably grow up to work at the paper mill someday too. But I was actually starting a hero's journey. If you're not sure what that is, the hero's journey is a lifetime adventure that characters have been going on from ancient myths to modern sci-fi fantasy. And philosophically speaking, it's a journey we all go on in our lives, whether we know it or not. I'm going to tell you about just some of the steps on this journey tonight, and I started like most do as an ordinary young searcher. But there are dark times on this journey, and for me, those were middle school. Whew, probably not the only one in here that experienced that. It was tough to be a passionate nerd back in the day. There were always bullies waiting to label you a loser and knock you down every time you let any part of your nerd side show. Even the books I was reading and the stories I was writing, things that could earn you praise when you're a little kid, would get made fun of in middle school. These were the obstacles, monsters, and villains that you have to face on the way. And I don't think most kids even realized how damaging their words could be. To insult my interests and mock my passions was devastating for me. In the battle of middle school, my self-esteem was getting defeated, and the wounds cut very deep. I found myself anxiety-ridden and felt like I was surrounded by judgmental members of a powerful empire trying to convince me to stop being myself. And unfortunately, at this time, even my own father was bullying me. He would tell me that a real man isn't into all that nerdy stuff, that I should be playing football, I should be going out to shoot real guns with him, not pretending with sci-fi fantasy toys. I felt like I was being tempted to leave my chosen path and my real purpose. And for a while, I caved into that pressure. I stopped being myself. I denied my true individuality. I hid my creativity just to fit in. The hero's journey calls this refusing the call to adventure. And on my journey, it meant pretending like I wasn't into anything that could get me called a nerd or a loser at school, or make my own dad call me a wuss or a mama's boy who needed to toughen up. It meant I was afraid to be myself. And what's worse, that I really didn't like myself at this time. But thank goodness I took another step on the journey when I met a mentor. My mentor was a youth pastor, a kind, creative guy named Mike, the Jedi Master who came into my life when I was a teenager and kept advising me into young adulthood until sadly he passed away much too soon due to severe complications from diabetes. I learned from him to just be myself and not try to change myself to become others. I learned from him that a real man can be all about reading and caring and humor and creativity. I learned from him that if I embraced my passions instead of hiding them, I could even use them to help others. And it was because of him that I took the next step on the journey when, like a lot of sci-fi fantasy characters, I discovered a magic object. It was the 1980s and the home video craze was happening. And my family ended up with one of those big, heavy VHS video recorders that you had to carry around on your shoulder. And my mentor, Obi Mike Kenobi, he encouraged me to pick up that magic object and use it and my passion for sci-fi fantasy to start making some fun movies with the other kids in our youth group and our summer camps. And immediately, my imagination and creativity were sparked once again. I started writing scripts, I started creating props and costumes, and instead of being made fun of, I was surprised to discover there were a lot of other kids interested in getting involved. The movies that I started making actually helped me make friends, or as the hero's journey puts it, find companions on the quest. This was years before smartphones, YouTube, and TikTok, so it was pretty rare to have this magic camcorder that had the power to bring all these different types of teenagers together. And one day my mentor sat me down and he said, "Paul, did it ever occur to you that the magic isn't just in that camera, that it's in you?" He told me he saw in me a special gift to be able to reach out to young people and help them break down the walls they build up between one another. And he suggested that maybe I use my creativity and my abilities to become a teacher. It hadn't occurred to me that my nerdy interests could turn educational somehow, but I decided to go to college, and I ended up getting a master's degree in teaching and eventually became a teacher-librarian for schools. When I became the first member of my family to graduate from a university, it was like that moment in the sci-fi fantasy stories where the whole village or kingdom comes together to congratulate you on completing your quest. And even though right after this moment, I sadly lost my mentor when he passed away, I knew that I had to continue his legacy. I knew that there were kids out there like me struggling with anxiety and low self-esteem, getting bullied at school or even at home, and I knew I had to return to school and make a difference for them. And that's why the next step on the journey is actually called the return home. Heroes return where they started, but they're different now. They've changed. They're more confident. They return to share their new knowledge and abilities with others. So I started teaching my students all about sci-fi fantasy, especially how the heroes in the stories can inspire us in our real lives. From ancient tales of Hercules and Mulan to modern adventures of Black Panther, Ms. Marvel, and The Mandalorian, these stories can inspire and help kids to see themselves and be themselves. And in every school that I've worked in, the students and I start a sci-fi fantasy club that meets in the library, and it's a place where unique, creative kids can gather together to talk, play games, read, write, draw, film, create without being bullied for their interests. The hero's journey calls this a sacred space, somewhere you can go to rejuvenate, to have peace, and truly be yourself around others. And the Sci-Fi Fantasy Club over the years has worked with me to make a large number of sci-fi fantasy films together. And the best part is that the whole school sees what we're doing, and suddenly everybody wants to be involved. That magic video camera does its thing again and helps break down walls, and suddenly kids who aren't normally talking to each other in hallways or lunchrooms are not only making a movie together, but making friends. The students also encouraged me to start my own YouTube channel that we call the Jedi Librarians Holocron, where we can show our movies, and also I can talk to kids about books and about sci-fi fantasy. And every year, we try to put on a big community event called ReadCon. It's our very own Comic-Con in the library, and it's a place where kids of all ages and their families can have an evening of sci-fi fantasy fun together. And we invite the members of the 501st and Rebel Legions and the Droid Makers. These are national organizations of fans who use their love of Star Wars to help others. And, you know, it's events and clubs like this that can make such a positive difference for young people. I will never forget the mom who told me about her son who was in the hospital trying to recover from a life-threatening brain bleed. And while he was there, he was diligently working to finish a Star Wars Lego scene that he really wanted to put on display at our ReadCon event. And to this day, she tells me that it was his desire to get that done and get that to the event and be there to have the other kids see it that really helped him recover and get better. And he was able to attend the event, and his creation won first place. And yeah. I'll never forget the former student who came back to see me as an adult and wanted to tell me that when she first started at our school, she was very lonely and depressed. She was struggling with her identity and felt harshly judged because of that, and was even suicidal, until she found our library and found our club and found that safe, sacred space where she felt comfortable being herself around others and could be accepted. There's so many kids out there who need that safe, sacred space. And honestly, more of us need to know that and help them have that, especially at such a crucial age on the hero's journey. I'll let you in on a little secret, though. The hero's journey never really ends. There's always going to be a new monster or obstacle that you have to face, a new path that you have to follow. Recently, an obstacle that educators like myself are facing is this increase in book banning lately, with some misguided folks actually trying to stop kids from reading books. And we have to stand up against that monster. Other obstacles lately include standardized testing, replacing imagination. You've got too many school districts that are cutting their teacher librarians, actually eliminating them from the kids' lives. But we have to keep the journey going. Recently, when my own school district unfortunately decided to cut its teacher librarians, I decided it was time for a new adventure, and I journeyed to a different school district where I took a new job in a new school library. And it's only been like 2.5 months, and there are already so many unique kids coming to the library because they've discovered a place. They've discovered a place where they can share their interests, where they can like freely be themselves without judgment, and it's just so fantastic to see. I myself have discovered a new sacred space of my own because I am currently in the process of joining the Rebel Legion, a group who will stand for others with our nerd flags held high. And by the way, tonight, I don't know if you know this, but tonight is May 25th, and that is the anniversary of the very first Star Wars movie being released in theaters. And that changed the life of this little 8-year-old. And as the hero's journey continues for all of us tonight, I want to encourage you, no matter your age or your interests or where you are on the journey, I encourage you to answer that call. I want you to start taking those steps forward, just like our special guests tonight are going to take steps forward as they join us in the theater. I encourage you all to be the hero of your own story. I encourage you, be the mentor for someone else. Be the companion helping others out there on their own quests. If monsters or villains try to block your path, stay strong, stay you. Resist the army of clones and proclaim, I am a Jedi, like those who walk the path before me. And all of us together can help the young searchers to be themselves, to choose their own books and their own journeys, to find their own passion and their own purpose. May the Force and reading and creative individuality be with us always. Thank you.